Call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of October 30th, 2019. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, please be sure to pick up a parking coupon on your way out for free parking. They're right up here. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We will appreciate your cooperation. Please note there are no final action items before the Planning Commission today. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held October 16th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved, Beckius.
Second, Shear.
Jerry?
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
And Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. However, the only item under today's consent agenda, Special Permit 19046, has been withdrawn and therefore will not be considered today. There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearing. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and or included as part of the record, please provide that information to the clerk for distribution. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, will you please call the first public hearing item?
Yes, thank you. Item 4.1 is Comprehensive Plan Conformance 19014 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan and Amendment of the City of Lincoln fiscal year 18-19 to fiscal year 23-24 Capital Improvement Program to add the quarter-cent sales tax funding source and update the streets and highways project descriptions. Staff recommendation is a finding of conformance with the comprehensive plan. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this item?
I see none. David.
Good afternoon, David Carey, Director of the Planning Department. Pleased to be here this afternoon to present to you a comprehensive plan conformity action item for a look at the update and change to the capital improvement program to reflect the Lincoln on the Move additional funding that we have now to work with, LTU in particular to work with. Moving forward, this is the ballot issue that was approved by the Lincoln voters back in April, provided for a quarter-cent revenue stream on the sales tax to allow for more projects related to our streets to be completed over the next 6 years. What we have here in front of you specifically is a CPC, a Comprehensive Plan Conformance Review. That is the action that is requested to be taken by yourselves. We recommend that this is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. What will go forward to the City Council then will be specifically a change in the first year of the changes, which is the second year of the current budget. So that is the action that will be taken by the City Council as it moves forward. I do have here members of the Transportation Utilities Department, and they will have some more specific information to share with you. What I do need to share with you today, however, is specifically a memorandum that is a revision to the staff report. I will hand this out and then I'll explain kind of what this revision is for.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So what you have in front of you is actually a fairly concise revision By the time we released the staff report for this hearing, there's been additional discussion, and it resulted in the desire to have a little bit better clarification of the language that we're proposing for each of these changes to the 3 projects that are receiving this additional funding for transportation improvements. And really the crux of this is really to better reflect the process that has been taken to date and then what will move forward. The change specifically is to the CIP is reflected in the first year, which is the program of projects that is being specifically identified by the ACT, the Advisory Committee on Transportation. Their process is focused on that first year. We didn't want the language to suggest that we're locking into all the other years of the CIP. And there's an ongoing effort, ongoing process using the ACT as well as getting additional input from the public moving forward to discuss the further programmed years as we move along. And as you know, there's also going to be new CIPs created as well. So there's opportunity for flexibility there. This really is just to reflect that the work done to date by the ACT and the input we received from the public really focused on the first year, and that is fiscal year 1920. And then we will continue to have that process move forward. That was just more of a clarification than anything, and that's really all the change in the languages there. If you have any questions, I certainly will answer them. I know we have our friends from LTU that will provide some additional information on this as well.
Questions for staff? I know I have some.
Do you want to?
I think mine's more for like
Okay.
LTU.
Great.
Any questions for David right now?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Cassidy. I'm the interim director at Lincoln Transportation and Utilities, and I'm happy to answer simple questions. I brought backup for complex questions in the form of Lonnie Berkland, our assistant director for transportation, and Thomas Schaefer, who's division head of project delivery. Madam Chair, could I tell you a little bit about the process, just to make sure everyone's familiar with that?
Retirement didn't last long?
Not long enough, but hopefully I'll be back there soon.
Okay.
As you know, when the ballot initiative passed last spring to apply an additional 0.25% sales tax for the next few years, it included language that created a citizen oversight process. And that's taken the form of something we call ACT, the Advisory Committee on Transportation. It's a 14-member committee. It has co-chairs. One of our co-chairs is here today, Mike DeKalb. And the committee has really been the body that has put forward the priorities on the projects that you're considering today for inclusion in our capital improvement project going forward. I was very impressed. I've only attended one meeting, but I'm very impressed with the level of discussion and consideration of the options. The ACT used a very interesting process that included using a software called Decision Lens to evaluate and weight and evaluate criteria. And the criteria that the committee considered were the criteria that citizens were surveyed on. And even though the survey had a relatively small number of people that responded and didn't purport to be random, I think the citizens that responded to it gave some pretty good thought into what kinds of things are important, such as the condition of the pavement, the volume of the traffic, and so forth on the streets that were under consideration. And after working with Decision Lens through that meeting, the committee basically decided to use the same weights that the citizens who responded to the survey used. And I think that was due primarily to the fact that when you think about what streets ought to be prioritized, the factors that any reasonable person would consider would basically be the same. You know, how many people travel on it, what's the condition of the street, these things are pretty basic. And essentially what you have before you is the results of that process. The sales tax increment is going to generate about $13 million annually. over the next 6 years. These projects do not add up to $13 million. So essentially, the projects that we have planned and that we want to do in the next year are being driven more by what's possible than what's available. And frankly, the need to do the engineering and the design and just the sheer number of contractors available and the work that has to be completed limits our ability to, at least in this first construction season, to use as much money as we will have revenue from that tax increment. We're very excited about it. We're hoping to have a little bit of flexibility in the CIP so that we don't have to come back to the Planning Commission continually for modifications and determinations of whether it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Dick?
Tom, when I look at the three different figures for 2019, 2020, what will you, would you have to come back to us for another review if you decided to spend more money?
Dick, when you use the word "what," you suddenly exceeded the level of my knowledge. So I'm going to defer to either Lonnie or Thomas to answer that, or maybe even David.
Yeah, I think I can help a little bit. As far as it coming back to the Planning Commission, the only reason why it would need to come back is if there was an additional specific project that had to be talked about for conformance review with the comprehensive plan. So it's unlikely that would be needed, at least in the near term. So the idea here is that the programs that are being reviewed right now will be inclusive of the types of projects that we're talking about. If there was something very specific, which is not the strategy that's been taken to date, it would not need to come back here. Even if there was more money to be spent, typically if there's more money available, that doesn't have to come back through a conformity review. Okay. It's possible that it might need to go to the City Council for a budget amendment, but that depends on the situation.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So, and then everything after this first year, David, then we would see in the subsequent CIP.
Yeah, the intention is that as we have those continuing discussions with the ACT and the public, those packages for future years would come back through in the form of these types of amendments.
So long-term, we would be anticipating the use of this revenue to be reviewed now, reviewed again next year for the CIP, and then 2 years after that, thereafter.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So this is just kind of like a patch to get us to that normal cycle.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to say that we won't be coming back to you more frequently, but certainly we will come back in the future multiple times with the next installment of project packages. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I'm sure Lonnie or maybe Mr. Schaefer is going to have to answer my questions. And I know that this is probably a little more detailed than just the CIP and making sure that we're in conformance, but I just have some questions.
Is that all for staff?
Well, this is all
Presentation?
staff.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure that was it for the presentation part.
Okay, you ready?
Bet.
So when you listed the projects in our report, are they in any particular order? Like these are the ones you're going to work on first, or just listed them in the report randomly?
So again, just for clarification, the ACT group that's been meeting over the course of several months now, I guess since August when we had our kickoff, really have been focused initially at this coming construction season. So those project packages that you have before you, and I'll let Thomas provide some detail on those individual areas, but the 3 arterial projects that we're planning on doing on South 40th, 48th Street, and then North 70th, in addition to those 4 residential neighborhood areas, all of those procurement packages are basically going to be designed and assembled now so that we can get bids out this winter ahead of next spring. And so the intent is that all of that work in all quadrants of the community will be going on next construction season.
So really you'll be working on those 7 all at the same time?
Yeah, we had some really great discussions with our committee. We've been talking a lot about project delivery and process and contractors and the concepts of project bundling and getting a bigger bang for our buck and delivering more and doing more, and being lean in kind of this development of these procurement packages. So a couple of the ideas that came forward in terms, and we haven't really finalized this yet, but we'll be moving forward upon your action and council, is that we will likely try to bundle one of the neighborhood projects with an adjacent arterial project down in that area. Same thing with North 70th. We think economies of scale, if we do the Havelock neighborhood residential project with North 70th and bundle and allow the contractors some flexibility, we should get some good pricing and mobilization, that kind of thing. So those are the things we're pretty excited about. Staff is to work through all those details at a fairly feverish pace to get those things done for next year. But yeah, that's a little more background.
Can I, one clarification, we will not be working on 40th and 48th simultaneously to affect traffic. While we're working on them at the same time for design, we will not be on both streets simultaneously.
That's probably a smart idea,
Yeah.
I guess. Now, because I drive 40th Street almost daily right now, I'm noticing, so when you said Highway 2 to Pioneers, I know the intersection at 40th and Highway 2 to Gertie, which is really kind of that first road there, was just redone not too long ago. So when you say Highway 2 to Pioneers, are you going to tear up that stuff that was just done, or is it just going to be like from that starting point on?
It'll be from that starting point on.
Okay.
This was more of a generic give people, if I say where's Gertie, you know it because you drive it, but not everybody will
Honestly,
know.
I had to look it up just 5 minutes ago because I knew the street, but I didn't know the name. Awesome. Now, say we have revenue come in faster than we think, and so we have more money. Does that mean that the ones that are already programmed in will be started faster? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Right, no, the timing of these projects in 2020 is not limited by the amount of revenue. So revenue coming in faster will not allow us to do it. It's limited by what we can coordinate, what we can actually design, and what can be accomplished from that standpoint.
I guess I was thinking along the lines of, like number 6 in our staff report lists ones that were already programmed. And I'm going to pick on one in particular just because I'm most familiar with it. So Randolph from Capitol Parkway to 40th Street. That's not scheduled until 2023, which I have a little bit of concern about that because it's pretty bad. If we have more funds, could that be bumped up, like say to 2020 instead of 2023? I guess 2020 might be fast. 2021.
So those other projects I think that you're referring to that, again, was an interesting topic for the committee to work through. We wanted to make sure everybody was clear on things that are already in the pipeline in terms of funding. A couple of those segments I think that you're looking at there actually are ones that we're doing with federal funding as part of that
Yes.
program. So they're in the pipeline. They're on a different pipeline than what would be done with this quarter-cent sales tax revenue. But they are projects that we're proactively going to be addressing.
So anything that's funded with the quarter-cent will not be anything on this list that's already out there in the CIP. Does that make sense?
Right. What we're really trying to do is track this sales tax program from a fund standpoint, a very transparent tracking standpoint, really individually. And I don't know if you've all been to the newer website. We can, walk through a little bit of that if you want. But basically, the plan is to illustrate those revenues that are coming in, that are going to these 3 branches in the capital improvement program, that then are funneling down to individual project numbers within those components of the program. And what we're really wanting to do is illustrate even contractor progress, revenues to date, what's been invested, the timeline, what's on pace. So we're really planning on utilizing the website probably in a newer, more modern way than we have in the past. It's probably something that's going to I think, as we've talked, trickle into other parts of our program, which would be great. It's something that we've talked a lot with the committee about, and I think everybody's pretty excited to track those projects in that way, and a lot of detail on the website, a lot of new interactive tools, and so that's really the plan with this portion of revenue.
Okay. I think that's all of my questions. Did that spur any other thoughts, Dick?
On the, under number 6, you've got 56th Street from Pine Lake to Yankee Hill, and it's being listed as just a milling project. I thought that was going to be taken to 4 lanes through the roundabout at Yankee Hill.
Initially, that's project work, and Thomas can help me out, but initially that's project work. We will be doing a federal aid project next season in 2020 at the intersection where, if folks are familiar with that 4-way stop, that is a single lane roundabout project that's being constructed with in coordination with NDOT and as part of a federally funded project. So that intersection improvement project, including some improved surfacing in all 4 directions leaving the intersection, will be completed, and that project that you're referencing has really helped filling in that gap to do more mill and overlay and rehab work to improve that surface.
But not widen it.
No, not at this point.
Okay.
I have a comment, a question. Thomas, and Lonnie, I applaud you guys. I'm impressed with the thought that you've put into how the schedule works from design through procurement, through contractor selection and doing the work. The question that I have, I'm just curious, but at the back end of the project, and as the projects begin to pile up, year 1, year 2, year 3, have you gone through and looked at how scheduling the management, observation, inspection, how that all is working together as well with your staff? This is really complicated, and I think for a lot of people, they don't understand how complicated this gets from a scheduling standpoint. But is there an issue with, at some point a year or 2 down the road, as these projects stack up, that you're going to have the correct amount of staff to be out in the field after things are designed and they're under construction?
Sure, that's something we're always cognizant of, and even today, we have consultant help that we hire to do inspection work. We can't get to everything with existing staff right now, so we would continue to augment our staff with consultant help.
And you've got all that planned into the process here. You're looking forward that way.
I wouldn't say I have it all planned in, but
But
yes, it keeps me up at night.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Any other questions right now?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go on to testimony and support.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike DeKelb. I'm one of the co-chairs of the ACT committee. I'm here to speak in favor. Just a few short comments. First off, I think Gertie is next to Hurdy. There's a song about that. I was going to mention that Staff City brought backup, but in the old days they had guns. It's like the world has changed. But at any rate, I want to make a point that what you had before you had really good, solid consensus support of the 14-member ACT committee. We had really good discussion. The biggest discussion was, do we follow the citizen input that was a heat map versus the staff's number crunching stuff off the GIS maps and so on. And after we went through some exercises with that, we found out that too, as was mentioned by Thomas, basically lined up. I mean, the hottest stuff, well, it did reflect the worst roads, which reflected the highest numbers. So lo and behold, they all kind of came together. So that's point number one. We had a good, solid consensus. We're fully in support of this. There was more support, I think, on the public side to hit the main arterials. That's where we all drive every day, the high traffic volumes, get all those darn potholes. And it was pointed out to us by staff, number one, The citizen doesn't realize how much money it costs to do those roads versus how limited 13 million really is. But part two is the practice of public works, which happens to be really good practice, is to work a year or two ahead of time with the public, with the businesses, with the detour folks to get everything lined up before you go closing a street and doing a major road. So with those constraints, we still got the three major roads in there as well as these bundles of residential streets. So, I mean, the bottom line here is I want to give accolades to say, number one, we're fully in support. Number two, our staff was fantastic. And I shouldn't say this because their heads will swell, but I do need to specifically point out Lonnie and his leadership and patience in working through with us. Thomas Schaefer, who I think is the real bundler guy in the numbers in the back, packaging things together, was fantastic. And the one who came to us, but you haven't seen him here, is Jeff McReynolds, who built the GIS system, basically, I think, or the lens, as they called it. We went through several exercises where we were asking questions of, does cost, if we bumped up cost for the highest criteria, how does that change the listing? Or if we did traffic volume or street condition, how does it change the listing? And we could put those variables in and the listing would change. The software program did that, as the chief mentioned. And so Jeff McReynolds from the GIS system folks did a great job on that. And it helped a lot in bringing us back to that point that, in fact, yeah, the desire lanes on the map are essentially the same as the numbers in the computer. Voila, we've got a package for you. So just want to speak in support. And thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mike, and if you would please extend a thank you to your committee, we would appreciate it.
You
as
betcha.
well.
You betcha. Good folks.
Mike, I want to thank you for stepping up and agreeing to be co-chair of the committee. I know that that's a daunting task sometimes, and I appreciate that.
It was fun. Thank you.
Other testimony and support. Testimony in opposition. Any testimony in opposition? Okay. Any staff questions? No more? You're gonna let them off this easy? I don't know. We don't really have applicant rebuttal because they're staff, so I'm gonna go ahead and entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve that this fits with the comprehensive plan.
Second, Finnegan.
Discussion.
Well, it's evident that the process was a great process, well conceived and well executed to this point, and I'm sure it will continue. Seems to me that all the pieces are in place to be successful and have this program continue to fit and conform with the comprehensive plan of our community as we move forward, and I'm going to support it.
It appears it worked like community processes are supposed to work. So thank you for everyone who was involved. Takes a lot of hard work and a lot of peddling under the surface, but I think it looked good. So I'll support it.
I too will support it. I think that staff has done a great job of keeping the public informed and getting their opinions and putting everything together and thinking about everything, the whole picture, which is wonderful. So good job, guys, and I look forward to seeing more as we get going on this stuff.
Tracy, I just want to mention, are we done? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. For the record, I will abstain from this vote. I have a family member who may benefit from a road construction included in this package. The state of Nebraska says I don't need to actually disclose it. However, I think a parent is enough of an immediate family member that I will abstain from voting, although the state says I need not to. So I will abstain. I think we have enough votes here today.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay, we ready? Jerry?
Okay, this is for finding of conformance of comprehensive plan conformance 19014 as reflected in the revisions as presented by staff to the staff report. Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Shearer.
Yes.
Beckius.
Abstain.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried, 5-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn. Sure.
Second, Campbell?
Jerry?
Okay, Campbell.
Yes.
Finnegan.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Shearer.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Core.
Yes,
Motion carried, 6-0.
we are adjourned.